Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
Hey, Kiernan.
Ryan, I feel like this time of year, it's at least here in New England, it's cold, it's snowy, it can be depressing. But here on Out of Office, these are like some of my favorite episodes of the year, the Christmas Spectacular, and another yearly tradition at this point, which is having someone from the New York Times come over and talk about their new 52 places list.
We love the 52 places to go in the New York Times. I think it's the definitive places to go list. Other places release them every year. This is the one I think they've got it. The New York Times knows what's going on.
They're just so creative in their choices. Yeah. I'm such a big fan of it, and I always hold my breath every year. Did they have a good experience? Are they going to come back? But I'm happy to say we got Stephen Hiltner back this year, who's sort of the man behind the list, and he takes us deep into the details. Now, before we get into that, though, I have no idea where you are. You might be somewhere on the list, so we should do the Judy alert so that your mom, who I know doesn't hear from you often enough, knows that you're safe.
So
where are you?
My poor mom. This has been a stressful week and a half for her because I was in Madrid a few days ago, and I left Madrid by train on the same day that terrible train accident
happened. Derailment.
Yeah. So I got to my destination in France, and I went to bed. And then my poor mom calls me like 8 times.
Oh my God.
And I'm not picking up the phone because I don't pick up the phone. I don't have notifications on. And who knows what she's like, I didn't sleep well that night, Ryan.
Oh, poor thing.
I'm like, I was asleep.
For what it's worth. So the initial report had 21 people dead. And I thought, well, the likelihood that Ryan's one of those 21, I don't know. And I thought about texting you, and then I was like, well, what am I going to do at this point? It's either done or it's not. So he'll let me know eventually, or he won't.
Right. This is how my mom should think. There's nothing we can do at that point.
Exactly. And I've got another co-host for the show lined up. My friend
you
Brian.
Tell me this all
he's been
the
trying
time.
to get in on this baby for years. And
I've got another co-host lined up myself.
Oh yeah, who's that?
So
who's that?
TBD. Well, to answer your question, I am in Nice, France.
So you've already gone. You went to Montpellier then at this point.
I did.
Right? What do you think? Did it live up to my description?
I thought it was a lovely town.
It's fine. It's fine.
It had a great cathedral, and it was nice to walk around, and it was good to get some like non-tapas. I have to tell you, I was tapatitious after a while, and
God.
So I've just been eating as many.
Would you say that you
treats.
were sort of tapped out?
I was tapped. Oh, that's another one. We could have a whole series of
t-shirts.
Tapatitious t-shirts.
So you're in, did you go to the beach?
No, I mean, I literally just got in and.
No, I mean in Montpellier.
No, I did. It's cold.
Well, you could still go walk on the beach.
I
grew up in a beach town where it gets cold.
I have been on the beach this whole vacation, like the chilly Spain beach and now the chilly French.
Vacation. I could swear you told me you were working all the time.
This working-cation.
Okay. All right.
But you know what I'm going to see?
This is what the big man's up to.
I'm going to see tomorrow morning, which I'm super excited about. One of the oldest archaeological spots in humanity. This fire that was started 400,000 years ago. It went out. Don't worry.
Good. This was my next question. Is still going?
It's not. That would be incredible. No, this has gone out, but it is one of the oldest sites of prehistoric man.
Wow,
here in
that's
Nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's old, right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty old. Yeah, I was thinking when you first described it. Remember, there's that like pit of hell in Turkmenistan where like it's tapped into a natural gas like pool, and so it's just perpetually burning down in this hole.
Pretty soon, our passports are only going to get us into Turkmenistan. So
it's bleak. I did wonder whether we should start talking about Greenland tourism, but I think it's a little too early. We got to see how that shakes out first.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
All right. So before we get into the interview with Stephen Hiltner, I just thought you and I, we've both thoroughly reviewed the list. Obviously, we're going to dive into some of the trends and themes on the list with Stephen. But you and I had a couple that, sparked our imaginations a bit. So I thought maybe, if you want to pick two or three, I'll pick two or three that we thought were cool finds on this year 50s two places.
Yeah, and I went out to that cool neighborhood in Barcelona the day that I read the 52
Oh,
places. So
amazing. Did you do it
I could
because of 52 or you were
I
already going?
did. I did.
Wow.
I went because of 52. I went to one of the restaurants. They mentioned two restaurants. I went to one of them and I told the waiter, I read about you in the New York Times today. And he had no idea what I was talking about.
Sure. Yep.
He was like, the New York Times? And I'm like, yeah, it's a big
Okay.
paper. So didn't reach the hadn't reached the neighborhood yet. They're one of the coolest places. But I wanted to pick two things off the list. One for each half of my year. My first half of the year, I'm going to be in South America. The second half in Europe. So for the South American pick, I want to
Wait.
go.
What's your year going to be? Like you're currently in Europe. You're going back to Europe in the second half of 2026?
Yeah, at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end. Yeah.
This is the
So
big move you're talking about.
this is a big move.
Where you're
Knock
going to
on
become
wood.
an Austrian.
I'm going to be Austrian. Like there's many famous Austrians. I don't want to
I
name
mean,
them because I can only think of one.
no, the Sound of Music Von Trapp family.
Yeah, the Van Trapp. That's who I was thinking of.
That's more your style.
Yeah. So where I want to go on the list, Pio Pastaza watershed. This looks gorgeous. Ecuador has a lot of beautiful outdoor activities that I haven't done, and this it seems really feasible that I could figure out a way to get here in the first half of this year. And what do you think, Kiernan? It's a very Kiernan pick because it's outdoors. It's a waterfall. There's
Yeah,
some
I kind of
hiking
feel like you're
involved.
stepping on my territory for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, they didn't pick like Buenos Aires or something, which I would be
Well,
happy if they.
I sort of forgot. Have you? So you have been to Ecuador, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah, we've talked about Quito on the
Oh
show.
yes, that's right. Right. We did a whole keto. Now, have you done much of the outdoors?
I haven't done any outdoor stuff in Ecuador. I've only done 3 cities. So,
Oh wow, okay.
yeah,
I do
yeah,
think this list is particularly good for you, given that you have, your home base is in South America. Gives you a lot of
yeah. There's another
fun
Costa
places
Rican
to go
beach that looked
explore.
cool, but I think the one that seems the most
There's
different in
that park,
places.
Cape Forward in
Yeah,
Chile.
yeah, but then you'd have to go back to Chile. Am I right?
What's wrong with Chile? Chile's amazing.
I'm kidding. I like to be down on Chile. That's my part of my vibe. No,
All
it's
right.
fine.
Okay.
Chile's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
So that is my first pick.
Yeah,
What did
that's
you
a great
bring
one.
a pick? Did you bring a pick?
Yes. Yeah. I have got to pick. It's similarly outdoors. So I'm very much at this time of year in the skiing frame of mind. We've been out skiing in New England quite a lot, and we have more skiing to come over the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. And it's been a common theme with some of the 52 places lists, these like other destinations. So, it's like if you don't want to go to this majorly overrun place, here's a place that's nearby that captures a lot of the same charm or aesthetic. And
Right.
so there's a recommendation.
Or else the list would just be the 52 most over touristed places.
Sure. Yes. And I have not skied in Europe yet. However, skiing is becoming so expensive that every year there's a few articles that come out that spotlight the fact that you can actually like book a flight and a hotel and your ski passes and go to Europe for cheaper than you can to go, for example, to Colorado. Though not this year. Well, yes, this year, but Colorado is having horrible snow. So it's actually a horrible year to ski in the West. But usually it's better than New England. And there's the famous Matterhorn, where in Switzerland there's a ski resort that's the one of the sceniest, most famous, Zermatt. But apparently on the Italian side of the Matterhorn, I was unaware, there is a ski area called Briule Cervinia. and it's gotten a major investment and renovation over the past few years, where like the ski lifts are being made nicer, the hotels are being redone, the restaurants are being. I mean, it makes me a little sad that it sounds like it's not going to retain some of that old school charm, but it's kind of the fresh new place to try if you find Zermatt to be too crazy. So that definitely sparked my imagination. As much as a New York Times article I really hang on to and reread every year about skiing in Japan, that one really stuck with me. I think skiing overseas sounds very exciting.
Oh, Japan, and Japan obviously had a couple spots on the list. I would love to go to Japan. It's like so
Have
high
you
on my
never been? I
list.
can't remember.
I have
You
never been.
okay?
No,
I've only
no.
been to Tokyo.
Yeah, it's so high on my list, and well, yeah, that sounds cool. I know you love to ski. I famously am a horrific. I ski like a Kennedy.
Sure.
I'm a
I mean,
terrible skier.
I'm not a terribly great skier, but I enjoy it.
No, but you go in like you can take the middle ones,
I
right?
can
Like,
take the middle. I sure can.
yeah.
I can take the middle ones, and I've even occasionally, back before children, when I was getting pretty decent, would go on the black diamonds. But I haven't ventured there for many a year.
Well,
But you know what? I'm
don't
not like a speed like I don't need the
no,
speed. I'm out there enjoying the nature. It's fun. It's good physical activity. It's
yeah,
great. Intermediate's where I want to be.
yeah. I think it's horrifying, but I'm glad you enjoy it. Um, my second pick in a pick that I think I can also realistically do this year because it's in Germany and I will be right next door in Austria. Is this famous opera festival in Bayreuth, Germany? How do you say that? Bayreuth?
I'm not sure. I think you gave it a good try, a little college try.
As you know, gosh, I'm just going around France like speaking Spanish to people. I'm like a
Oh
disaster.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh,
it just
oh,
sounded like you said Beirut with a Castilian
yeah.
accent.
Well, that's that we've actually done a deep dive on this.
Absolutely. We had
Yeah.
Alex Ross on from the New Yorker after he wrote a great, compelling article about how Germany has this magical culture of opera. But I don't think of you as a great opera lover. So I was surprised to see this pick from you.
Well, I like opera. I'm getting old, and I think a gay man above 40 needs to start to learn about opera. So I feel like European Ryan should go to the
Now, I just
opera.
have a question. Do people over 50 refer to themselves as people over 40? Because I'm getting a little confused as to what you're
I'm
trying
I
to.
am I am 43 years old.
You are not 43 years old.
100%, 100% born in 82.
All right, all right.
Ah, mom, right in, right in. Did you bring a second pick here?
Yeah, this one it again goes in that over tourism and sort of other destinations. I was unaware. I think it's been a big story over the last decade that Mount Everest is now overrun with trash, conga line of people, as it's described in the Times, and a lot of unqualified people trying to
Yeah.
ascend just to like tick that mark off their travel box. And
So
so,
you're going to do that this year? You're going
yeah,
to climb
yeah.
Everest?
Do you know when I flew to Bhutan, I saw Everest out
Yeah,
the plane window, which was so
yeah,
cool. I mean, that was epic. But that's the closest
yeah.
I'm going to get to it.
Well, that was higher than most of the people get when they're climbing it. So
the Nepal has taken a really interesting policy approach here. So they're trying to kind of right size the tourism to Everest by raising the permit to climb to $15,000 while waiving permitting to climb similarly impressive peaks all around the country. And so there's all of these mountains that I've never heard of that are just so close to what you would experience on Everest, and you really do have room to spread out those who are interested in ascending.
hey, you know what
So
they could do? They could just say ban the Sherpas, and then
yeah,
nobody
and then just
nobody
let
would go
everybody
up.
die. I mean, they say there are. I mean, there's corpses and human
Yeah.
waste, and it's really not a
Oh,
pleasant scene.
yeah.
The
The
more I hear
Starbucks
about
up
it, the
there,
less it
though,
goes.
right? Like, yeah.
I don't know. Starbucks closing left and right around here.
Oh,
I'm seeing
well,
closed Starbucks.
the
I love
Chinese alternative up there.
for
Yeah.
my industry. I'm loving seeing these Starbucks close. Actually, the best experience is in Harvard Square. There was a great corner store that was an independent children's toy shop called Curious George, and it was wonderful. And it closed, and it became a Starbucks, which was so depressing. And guess what? That Starbucks just closed.
Well, there you go.
There we go. We're getting it back. We're getting it back. So hopefully we see the tourism spread around from Everest to some of these other very impressive places. And I think I could see if you go and do one of these climbs, it doesn't have the cachet at parties of being like, oh yeah, I just did Everest. You're going to have to be like,
but you could just say,
oh yeah,
I climbed a mountain in Nepal.
I just
wink,
did
wink.
a P Himal, and they'll be like, what's a P Himal? You got okay. Let me pull out my phone.
Yeah.
I'll show you the New York Times list. See how it's impressive? See how many feet in the sky it is?
No, just like when people who went to Boston University say they went to college in Boston, hoping that, they'll think, come up with another school.
I don't know anything about that.
I climbed a tall peak in Nepal, wink, wink. and people would assume you're talking about Everest.
Sure, yeah. I just got back from Nepal. My climbing equipment sure is rusty.
It was very tall.
All right. Well, I want to dive in deep with how they picked the places, what other themes were apparent on the list, and what were some of Stephen Hiltner's personal picks. So I think it's time to get to my interview with Stephen Hiltner of the New York Times.
Hello, cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
Stephen Hiltner is an editor, writer, and photographer for the travel section of the New York Times and the man behind the 52 places to go in 2026. Stephen, thank you so much for coming back on Out of Office.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
And congratulations for getting the list out the door. For me, this is the true end of the holiday season. Starts at Thanksgiving, you get through Christmas, New Year's, but I feel like this is the capping achievement when the 52 places comes out. For those who aren't familiar, what is the 52 places list?
Each of the items is very deeply reported. There's a lot of cultural information. There's a lot of historical information, but we also try to make them very timely. So every element, every part of this list has a reason. Every place has a reason to go in 2026 in particular.
And take us through that process. When do you begin? How long is the long list? How do you even begin to start wrapping your arms around trying to capture a year in just 52 places?
Yeah, it's a long, drawn-out process. I think this year, Amy and I sent an email out to all of our contributors. That's freelance reporters, staff reporters, board and correspondents, basically everybody that we work with, everybody that we have worked with in the last several years. I think that email went out in early September. And basically, we tell everybody we're starting the list for next year. Please send us suggestions for places that you can recommend for 2026. That list goes out to hundreds of people, and those hundreds of people send us many, many hundreds of submissions. And so we end up with this very long Google Doc that has every place that has been recommended to us. And basically then spend a month or two. There's a small team of us on the travel desk, the editors. We spend a month or two going through, reading through all those submissions, and very slowly over time winnowing that down to a list of 52 places. There are so many considerations that go into it. Obviously, we want a list that is very geographically diverse. We want a list that is visually very diverse. We want, lots of beautiful landscapes and beach scenes, but also really compelling museums and really compelling architecture, really compelling food scenes. Like we think a lot visually about what this collection of images is going to look like together. And so there are all these sort of like themes that we try to hit on. And it's like putting together a giant puzzle piece every year.
And I know just from the Out of Office inbox, and I'm just this lowly travel podcast, the Times must get every press release. I assume there's lobbying by tourism boards. Do you also go through folks who are trying to fight their way in, or is it all trusted sources and journalists? It's kind of in the Times family that you source.
We do get pitches, but they make up really a small minority of what we look at. So most of what we look at is coming from writers and reporters that we work with. If we're a little bit thin in a given area or a given region, we'll sort of drop down and look at lists that come in from um, other people in the game, PR companies or whatever it is. But we tend to be extremely, we really try to do all of the reporting ourselves. So that element of it is very, very small. And actually, I don't think there's anything that we pulled off of those submissions. We collect them, and I have a little tab for them at the very bottom of our this page, this Google Doc that I have, but normally we don't really reference them. Um, you can tell sometimes with freelancers, people are looking at similar materials. I think you can tell that some of the reporters that we get submissions from are looking over other people's lists and have probably gotten promotional material. There was one city in particular that was designated as a European cultural capital this year that we got recommended by several different people, and it did not make our list, in part because we felt like probably it was going to be on a lot of other lists.
Yeah, it's already
And
out there.
actually, it turned out that it was. So we tend to kind of steer clear of that kind of influence as best we can.
To me, that's what makes the 52 places something to look forward to, is you're usually covering things that I'm totally not aware of. In fact, this year you have an island I've never even heard of, which we'll talk about. But one last question on the process is, as you're taking in and weeding and editorializing all the choices, I assume some themes come out, or you start to even get a sense of just the historical moment of what 2026 is going to look like. Were there any themes that emerged in this year's list?
You know, we have made an effort in the past to include themed categories. And in fact, one year, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we allowed readers to sort through the list based on theme. So if you were interested in family friendly travel, you could click a little button at the top of the list and you could sort of sort out all of the family friendly travel destinations that might appeal to you. We didn't do that deliberately this year. There's no way to sort the list. And we didn't tag the locations the way that we have in the past. But I think, in general, themes emerge no matter what kind of a story you're putting together. And in this case, looking through lots of different submissions, I would say certain themes emerged, maybe themes that you wouldn't necessarily be surprised by. But over tourism is a big one now, and it's something that we think about a lot as we're putting together this list. And it over tourism informs the way that we and hedging against over tourism informs the way that we think about certain places, particularly, for example, like in Japan. We really try to recommend places that are going to get people beyond the over touristed and maybe the really predictable travel experiences.
Yes, I definitely picked up on that. There were a few spotlights this year that are on the other option. So you've heard about this destination. This destination's getting sort of saturated. Here's a place nearby where you can get a similar authentic experience.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We sort of sometimes on the desk, we refer to those as dupes. So they're sort of duplicate experiences where you can avoid some of the less appealing aspects and maybe help alleviate some of the over tourism for people who are living there and for communities that are a little bit stressed by tourists and go to a different place instead, that offers some similar experiences and obviously some unique experiences as well.
Is it your responsibility to cross-reference the last decade or more of lists to be sure you're not featuring the same place multiple times?
It is, yes. I sort of wish that I could share. So from this enormous, unending Google Doc, we move into a Google Sheet. So it's really sort of it's just an immensely complicated spreadsheet. But one of the tabs on that spreadsheet is a tab for previous 52 places lists, and it's a quick and easy way for me to keep track of everything that we've run. I think this was the 22nd list and the 21st year of 52 places to go. So it's been going for a long time. It's been a long franchise. There are several hundred places overall that have made the cut in the past. And I've got this spreadsheet that kind of keeps track of all that for me. I can do a quick search and see the last time that, for example, Barcelona was on, or some of the more popular destinations.
Yeah, to jump into the destinations, I know one that sort of fits this category that I jumped right into the paragraph describing it because I was surprised to see it was Iceland. Because I do think over the last 15 years, Iceland as a tourist destination has just been gaining more and more steam. There's full ad campaigns on it. Iceland Air has become very popular. So, what put Iceland back on the list this year?
Yeah, this is one that we definitely talked about a lot. I mean, we ran a story in the fall about sort of the last 15 years of tourism in Iceland. It was really in the last 15 years that Iceland has sort of become a booming tourism industry, and we did this big look back at why that change occurred and how it evolved, and looking forward into what might happen there. But the big draw this year was the eclipse. So on August 12th, there is going to be a total solar eclipse. And we figured it would be a great way to call attention to some of the more inventive ways that they are celebrating there. We had a lot of conversations about the best way to cover this particular eclipse because part of it is also stretching into Spain, I think it is. So we considered some locations in Spain, but Iceland ultimately won out. They're having some interesting solar eclipse parties with DJs and dancing, and it seems like it will be a fun, unique place to see it there. The other big thing is I think there won't be a total there will not be a total solar eclipse in Iceland again until 2196. So sort of a once in several lifetimes.
Yeah, the dance parties are going to look different by then.
Exactly.
And I know for those, again, who are learning about the 52 places list, it is not a ranking. So the top spot is not suggesting that this is above all the others. However, I did like the first entry this year because it was around revolutionary America, which seemed unique to me because it was around a theme that is creating lots of celebrations and lots of events all across America in this year.
Yeah, this was another one that we debated a lot and actually made a change to relatively late in the game. We were trying to figure out if we wanted to do Revolutionary America as a whole or to single out some of the places, Philadelphia, for example, or Washington, D.C., that are really throwing big celebrations for the 250th birthday of America. But, the idea of doing a themed entry, it's kind of fun. It's very timely. Last year, the number one destination was Jane Austen's England, which we had a lot of fun with. You're right to point out both were sort of themed items. I think probably because they just speak to something that's so timely. 250th birthday of America is such a big moment for the country, and there are going to be so many celebrations, not just in places like Washington and Philly, but in Massachusetts, and Virginia, and New York as well. So there's going to be a lot going on around July 4th, and a lot to look forward to.
One type of destination it put on that I hadn't been thinking about because I'm based in Somerville, Massachusetts, so a lot is going on around me. But you talk about some of the founders' homes, particularly at Mount Vernon. They're going to set up a Revolutionary War encampment. That there's a bunch of events all throughout the year. I did think that's if you've been thinking about visiting the homes and burial sites and things of all the founding fathers, this is the year to make sure you cross-reference it with the calendar of events to be sure, one, if you just want the tour, make sure it's not on the major celebration day, or if you're looking for a special event to plan a trip around, it'll all be available on their sites.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, it's definitely something to plan ahead for, look to see what is going on. I almost drove up to Great Barrington this past weekend. They had an event there in celebration of the Henry Knox Trail, which was sort of a moment in 1775, 76, where Henry Knox was dragging all these cannons down to Boston for George Washington. And it was just, a really fascinating little event, local event, very colorful. Tons of things like that going on all over the country. So definitely look into event lists wherever you might be heading, especially in the Northeast.
And you mentioned Jane Austen from last year. Another anniversary that came up this year that I was unaware of was the introduction of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, so it was another fun entry that we did. Winnie the Pooh's England. Um, it was a century ago that A. Milne introduced Winnie the Pooh to the world. And so we thought this would be a fun way of pointing to some of the celebrations that are going on in East Sussex and some of the surrounding areas. Obviously, a fictional creature that means a lot to a lot of people, and a lot of people have a lot of warmth for. So we thought that was fun to include in the mix this year.
And I just want to throw in while you focus in on the British destinations, if you're in New York City, you can go see the original Winnie the Pooh in the New York Public Library.
Yep, there you go.
So close to home as well. I'm actually going to look whether they're going to do anything, or I have to assume they'll do something around this anniversary.
I would imagine, yeah, but I don't know offhand.
Two more anniversaries that caught my eye on the list. One is the centennial of Route 66.
Yeah, this was another one that excited us. 100 years since the founding of not just of Route 66, but of America's numbered highway system. And we identify a lot of places along this route, which starts in Chicago, ends in Santa Monica. There are car rallies. The video associated with this item is this really sort of crazy winding road outside of Oatman, Arizona, that actually I've ridden on a motorcycle, and it really was quite an intimidating stretch of road. But there are revamped hotels, all kinds of sort of, again, local celebrations for this 100th anniversary. So if you're considering that, another chance to take a look at what's going on in the local areas.
And it wouldn't be out of office if we didn't talk about the most Catholic destination on the list. The 800th anniversary of the death of St. Francis is bringing Assisi onto the list.
Yeah, it's bringing Assisi onto the list, and it's bringing his body on display.
Amen. This is classic Catholic tourism.
Absolutely. I think February 22nd to March 22nd are the dates, I think. St. Francis's remains will be on public display for the first time. So if you're a particular kind of traveler who feels compelled to pay St. Francis a visit, now's the chance.
The priest in my congregation growing up, he used to say to me, for all the original pieces of the cross that you can see around the world, there's about 800 cross worths of wood out there. So I would be fascinated to know where this body has been kept secretly for the past 800 years.
Yeah, I would as well. Maybe I'll meet you there.
Now, the biggest surprise for me was a 5-mile square island called Saba. So what can you tell us about Saba and what's going on this year that made it right for the 2026 list?
Yeah, this was an island in the Caribbean that caught our attention. It is very small. There are only 4 villages, no places to dock a cruise ship. There is a new hotel opening, which is big news on an island this small. It's opening in early 2026. And that one hotel alone will increase the number of hotel rooms island-wide by almost 30%. So it's big news. It's also an island that has a lot of sustainability goals. They operate on solar energy during the day. And they have banned single-use plastics. So it's a very sort of green destination. And we thought it was really interesting to include in the mix this very striking island. I mean, the picture for this particular item I love. You're sort of looking at the island through the window of a airplane. You can see the airplane propeller in the foreground. I just love it. I think it's a striking image. And we thought it would be a dramatic, fun inclusion in the mix.
For me, the photograph that made me sit up, I often try to search out on the list a suggestion for an international national park that I wouldn't be familiar with. I know a lot about domestic parks, and you do have some about natural spaces in the US, but Armenia really caught my attention because I don't think of that as a common tourist site, but the picture is just beautiful with the mountainscape behind it. And it sounds like tourism has been slowly building there.
Yeah, slowly building there, and part of it is related to these winemaking traditions that we call attention to, that are more than 6,000 years old. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a very striking image. You see this vineyard in the foreground, these very sort of unforgiving rocky mountains in the background. If you look really closely, there's sort of like a monastery of some kind, like a
Mm-hmm.
steeple sticking up on one of the peaks.
Yeah, so yeah,
So
it took me a minute to see that.
yeah, so I love that image as well.
I believe you usually try to find one or two destinations that are focused on a new museum or maybe a special exhibition coming to a museum. Are there any of those on this year's list?
I think there are several new museums. I guess maybe the one that I would call out is in Warsaw. Warsaw was number two. As you say, we don't really see these as a ranking, although we do spend some time thinking about what the top five, what the top 10 are going to look like to get a good mix in there. There is a new Museum of Modern Art opening in Warsaw that was designed by Thomas Pfeiffer. So it's this very striking interior that you see of these two stairwells. Everything's very different shades of white and gray and tan. It's quite a striking image. But that new museum we call out near the top of the list. I'd have to think about some of the others, but um,
Yeah, that's great. I personally, another passion of mine is we call ourselves TED heads. I'm a real Theodore Roosevelt nut. And Ryan, my co-host, and I are actually planning on trying to get out to Theodore Roosevelt National Park this year. And I was so thrilled to see it. It won't be a surprise to out of office listeners that North Dakota made it onto the list for the opening of the new presidential library there.
Yeah, and I love this item as well. I had the great pleasure of spending a few days in Teddy Roosevelt National Park 2 or 3 years ago, and just found it to be one of the most stunning landscapes that I've ever visited. Um, I also, the reason it made the list this year is the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library is opening, and it is a really striking, beautiful building that is slated for later this year. But the landscape itself, even if you don't see this new library, even if you get there before it's open, it's really stunning. And if you can, I would suggest making your way up to one of the lesser visited sites, which is called the Elkhorn Ranch, which is the place where Teddy Roosevelt actually built his ranch when
Mm.
he was spending time out in North Dakota. I believe it is actually a separate parcel from the main national park site. And you've got to drive on some pretty tough dirt roads for quite a while to get up there. But it was one of the more peaceful, serene places that I have ever visited. And it was really special. So I really recommend, if you get up there, make sure you get up to Elkhorn Ranch.
I liked this year's edition on the digital version of the list for, I believe this is the first year you've done this, where you can keep track of places that you have been or ones you want to add to your destination list. Is this the first year for that feature?
It is the first year for this feature, yes. So there are basically two buttons for each item on the list. You can click if you have been to that place, and you can also click if you want to go to that place. And when you scroll all the way to the bottom, we basically create these cards for you of the places you've been and the places you want to be. It's kind of a fun way for readers to keep track as they're going through the list, but it also provides us on the back end with a lot of really interesting data about which places are really exciting people. So we published a story this week, a week after the main list published, where we looked at that data on the back end, and basically we're able to see like the top 10 places that people want to visit, um, and some surprising results. The first, the place that most people saved as a place that they want to visit was Canadian Rockies by train.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we were all a little bit surprised by that. But it is, uh, I certainly would love to go there. It looks stunning. The trains cut through a very striking landscape, and interesting for us to be able to see even a week out where people really are excited to visit.
It begs the question, when you went through the list, how many places had you been and how many did you list it? Well, you're going to say the whole rest of the list you want to go, of course.
Yeah, I filled out only the places that I'd been. I feel like I'd spent so much time thinking about all of them that I was probably a little bit biased. But I think I had been to 19
Woo!
on
Wow,
this
that's
year's list,
great.
which was pretty good. Yeah.
I know Ryan had 11 and I had 10. It killed me that it beat me, that he beat me. Of course,
Yeah.
that's got to be the first thing any traveler does. You want to see how many places you can brag about having been.
Yeah.
Were any places total surprises to you? Some place you had never been on your radar before?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it happens every year. When we get these submissions, a lot of them I'm learning about for the first time. Even in the top 10, the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica, I had never read about this particular part of Costa Rica. If I make it to Costa Rica, which I'm hoping I can at some point relatively soon, I will almost certainly try to get down here. It is sort of away from where most tourists go, and compared to other parts of Costa Rica is much less developed. But it has a stunning national park, and it is a really popular place for wildlife spotting, particularly for sloths and some of the native monkeys there. So it's extremely lush. It's very biodiverse. You kind of get a sense of that just right off the bat looking at the picture, but I had never heard of that particular area. And honestly, just probably a dozen places like that on this list of, I may have been familiar with the region, but had never really read much about the specific place.
The one that probably captured my attention the most was the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. These are, one of the hardest places to get to that's under Interior Department government land. But I especially loved the photograph that you chose for it, showing I think it's a caribou that you can spot there.
Yeah, I think a couple caribou standing in this sort of sprawling field. I doubt that many of our readers are going to make it out there.
Yeah,
but
it's hard.
I
mean, this is the sort of place you gotta hire a plane to take you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it sort of speaks to what this list can do. I think there are sort of two buckets of readers, right? There are people who will read this list really hoping to plan a vacation, and maybe they'll find a place or two that they're really hoping to get to. I think probably there are quite a bit more people who just like to sit and look at these places and learn about them and be introduced to parts of the world that maybe they don't know a lot about. This is a great example of a place that really is in the news, right? The reason it made the list is that it's being opened up for oil development. So there are a lot of changes that may take place here very soon. And even if you're not going to make it out there, I think it is really beneficial to learn about it and to know what's going on in this sort of far-flung corner of America.
I have two more questions to close out on. One is, once this gets packaged up and goes out in the print edition, are you immediately on to a next assignment, or do you have a great article you could tease here?
I'm already working on several things at the moment. Nothing may be ready quite to tease, but
Okay.
things go fast. The digital version published last week. We are now in the process of closing the print pages, which I think close tomorrow, and it will be in print not this coming Sunday, but the following Sunday, the 25th, I believe. So still quite a bit to do in the next day or so, but hoping to put out a beautiful print section for the people who are looking forward to seeing it in paper.
All right. Well, congratulations again to you and your team. We'll link both to the core list itself, also to that follow-up article that you talked about, where we learn about what the data showed people are most excited about. And I hope to talk to you next year, if not sooner.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks so much, Stephen.
Yep.
And now it's time for the last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan, we're here in the last stop. Many thanks to Stephen Hiltner. Great chat. I hope you come back next year. Ryan, we're here in the last stop. It's the last segment of the show, the final segment of the show. It's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the people segment because it's a time of sharing and communion. It's where, with socialist Democrats on the rise. I mean, this soon everything's going to be like the last stop. Just free grocery stores, free buses, just chaos. But let's not take a negative approach to this because, Ryan, really, it's just you and me sharing. We can share anything. It can be a gear recommendation, could be a story, could be a poem. I don't think we've ever had a poem, but I like to think that, we're literate fellows. Maybe for you, it sounds like it could be an opera. But it has to meet one criterion. So, get those opera ears out. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workday week. So, Ryan, I want to ask you, as I do every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kiernan. What do you think the only major country was to see a drop in tourist spending in 2025?
Gosh, wherever could it be?
It is the United States.
Yeah, pretty big fall too, from what I understand.
It was a pretty big fall, almost 13 billion in lost revenue from foreign tourists. Represents a 22.5% drop from a peak set a decade ago.
Wow.
So I think if you're in the U.S., like most of our listeners, this is a good time to do some domestic tourism because
that's an interesting spin on it. I find it depressing. Do you know? I really do feel that we felt this in our sales at Clover this year. Because we have a lot of we have restaurants in top popular tourist spots: the Prudential Center, Harvard Square, downtown Boston, near the Common, etc. And during some of these peaks, especially during the summer, but also around the holidays, you do get a bump around the Thanksgiving holiday, Christmas holidays. It just feels like there are fewer tourist groups around than there used to be. We used to get kind of big influxes of people, and I do think that people are sticking closer to home or going to friendlier nations.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching the news, you don't exactly want to go to the U.S. possibly to doesn't look like a great time. But not to get political, but we are a tourist podcast, and I think this is a pretty substantial drop in tourism from a country that needs a lot of tourism.
I mean, it would be hard to, the people who I always think about are the students who aren't coming. I mean, that doesn't fall in the tourism bucket, but if anybody, I mean, there was just a story about a Babson student who was deported accidentally. The government is saying it was accidental. And then there's been a lot of stories that are focused on campuses. It would be hard if you were an international student to make the decision to come here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't feel like you'd be that welcome. It's a shame.
Well, I mean, it's the isolationist path that we're on. So this is an expected outcome of it, I would say. And, we'll have to see where it goes. Luckily, America's been resilient before, and we have a lot of natural wonders in some of the best cities in the world. So hopefully we see this turnaround.
Yeah. Well, you brought a last stop that's about a lot of people coming together from all over the world.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Italy. Last week I was talking about the end of the Jubilee year in Rome at the Vatican. And now Italy's still in the spotlight because I'm very excited that the Winter Olympics are coming up the first week in February. I think the opening ceremony is on the 6th. But I found it really interesting that so the Winter Olympics are being held in northern Italy. And one thing that I didn't know was that they're taking kind of a unique approach to how to set up the venues. Because for the times that the Olympics have been held in the United States, there's always stories about spending overruns, building all this amazing construction and all these stadiums that are just going to go to waste or fall apart. And so what Italy did was they actually decided to have the games spread out across quite a huge area. So the area is going to cover 8,500 square miles of northern Italy. So that means that you can't hop from event to event just based on their timing. You've got to actually build in a lot of complex travel if you want to go
trains
from one
and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a 2.5 hour or more. Plus, it's the Winter Olympics, which means you're going to have snowy conditions. So if you're driving, these can be difficult mountainous areas to be. the CEO of the U.S. Olympic Committee said, I think this will be the classic pack your patience because there will be some travel time. I don't know if I'm traveling all the way to Italy just to attend the Winter Olympics. I'm not sure I would be capable of that level of patience.
I think events like the Winter Olympics and the World Cup and the Super Bowl, you just have to know it's going to be a nightmare. Most of it's going to be a nightmare.
It's what turns me off. Boston was bidding for the Olympics a few years ago, and people really rose up and said, we just don't want this headache because it's going to choke the city. It's going to dominate all of the attention for 3-4 years. And we just don't think it's going to be advantageous. So, I mean, I will say on the
It would have been nice to see people swimming up and down the Charles, though. That would have been cool.
I will say, though, like if you think so, the technical host cities are two cities in Italy. One is Milan and one is called Cortina d'Ampezzo. And they are 250 miles apart, just to give you a sense of the distances we're talking about. On the flip side, it is a smart way to do it because they're using a lot of stuff that's already built. By spreading it out, you don't have to shove together all these new stadiums. You can use things that are already there to host these events. So like anything, I think with good planning, you can probably get around most of the annoyance.
Well, I will be in Milan over the weekend, and I will let you know what Olympic preparations.
That's very exciting. You should try to go to I wonder where the athletes are staying. How many Olympic villages are there?
Yeah, that's. I'll try to find out.
Try to peek your way in there. Just flex your muscle, and
I'm sure I have some friends who are figure skaters.
Say you're on the bobsled team.
I will. Well, Kiernan, I think we gave our listeners at least 52 ideas for travel this year. And until next time, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
The seat taken.
So you're going to climb a mountain in Nepal? Was that your pick?
No. I'm just interested in it. Okay. Again, these are more things that I want to look out the window on the way to Bhutan and Spa.